The following story has been brought to you by StoriesToInspire.org.
I saw an incredible story a while back about a particular fellow who was a very poor fellow, and he had a house full of daughters, and every time that someone would read a shidduch and he had great children, they would ask, what are you willing to give? How much can you give? And he would say, I would love to give them everything, an apartment, and set them up and support them, but I don't have the money. I can't give anything, even for the wedding. I'll give a little bit. I can't. And because of that, his daughters, sadly, were not able to find the shidduch. As his daughters got older and older in their high 20s, he was struggling. His kids needed a shidduch. What was he supposed to do? He didn't have money. And every time people heard he didn't have money, somehow the shidduch didn't work out. And he said to himself, you know what? All my friends are making weddings. And it's amazing that they have weddings, but there's a certain pang of jealousy that I feel when I go to a wedding and they have a 21-year-old child getting married and they're able to help them. And my daughter's 28, and I really have no hopes for them. I don't know what to do. And when he kept thinking about this, he said to himself, you know what? I need to do something for my daughters. I can't do something financial, but let me do something spiritual. And he made up in his mind that every simcha that he hears about, that a friend of his is marrying off a child, he's going to go there, and with true inner joy, he's going to wish them mazel tov. He'll dance with them. He'll stay at the chasana, and he'll try to relish in their simcha and not be sour about the fact that that fellow is marrying off a child and his child hasn't even gone out. And this was a hanhaga, a conduct that he conducted himself with, where he started going to simchas, he started going to weddings, and he started trying, with superhuman effort to put himself in their shoes and try to feel their simcha, with hope that somehow the Rebbeinu Shalom would help him feel simcha as well. He decided to go to a simcha of somebody who he knew peripherally, but who invited him to the wedding. He says, listen, I have to feel his simcha. This was a fellow who wasn't a wealthy fellow necessarily, but somehow did great shidduchim. And he goes there, and this is the guy's fourth or fifth child, and there's so much simcha there, and you could see how happy the father is, and he really, truly wished him on, and he said, I'm so happy for you, and he was. He sits down at the table. And at the table there's a conversation taking place, which shouldn't have been taking place. And the conversation was about a particular fellow in their community who owned a company that made canned food. And the word on the street was that he was going bankrupt and he was laying people off. And somebody said something, he's just taking the money, and when he sees times are getting bad, he's trying to get out and not pay people that he owes money. He doesn't care about his workers. And really badmouthed the owner of this cannery. And when he heard this, it made him really upset. He says, he's working so hard on being positive, and someone's being negative. He says, it's not true. I know this fellow personally. He's one of the kindest people in our community. I know personally from firsthand experiences how he's helped his workers in difficult situations, and he's gone out on a limb. That's not the kind of person that he is. Don't talk that way. And the fellow comes back and says, yes, it is, and I know, and I heard it. Over and over, he says, how could you say such a thing? We're at a wedding where there's a simcha. Don't be negative, be positive. You don't know. Never judge another person until you walk the mile in their shoes. You have no idea. That's not appropriate. And that was the end of the chasna. A few days later, a shadchan calls him up. The shadchan says, I have a shidduch for your 28-year-old daughter, for your older daughter. He says, really? He says, I can't provide anything. He says, it's not a problem. The fellow knows your financial situation, but he's willing to do a shidduch with you anyways. He says, really? How? He says, whatever. The fellow knows it. Turns out, who do you think the father of the boy was? It was the fellow that owned the cannery. And when he heard somebody coming to his defense who didn't have to, and focusing on the positive, he said, that's the kind of family I want my son to get involved with. And Hashem works mysterious ways. The fellow with the cannery was able to pull out of bankruptcy and became very wealthy. And he was able to support this young couple very, very generously and make a beautiful wedding. And more than that, he ended up employing many of the other daughters in this family who did well and ultimately had money for their own weddings. And the fellow, in 3 years, married off all of his children. When you're down the kav sechus, when you give someone the benefit of the doubt, when you focus on the positive, miraculous things happen. And like the Gemara says in the Masechah Shabbos, which we just said a moment ago, one of the 8 size liskas bedin the Bali Musar write down, we're all struggling. Rosh Hashanah is not that far away. Ser Simei Tshuva and Yom Kippur, and all of us are going to stand before the Rebbeinu Shalom, and it's not going to be so simple. What can we bring? What tool, what weapon can we have in our arsenal that'll ensure that the Rebbeinu Shalom inscribes us l'chaim tovim down l'kav sechus, focusing on the positives in other people, bringing them closer to us, That is an incredible schus. The Gemara says it. It's not some, Chassidish Sefer. It's the Gemara. The Gemara says if you're down other people, you give them the benefit of doubt. That's how the Rebbe Shalom reciprocates. Hashem tzilcha. Hashem is our shadow. When we move our hand, the shadow moves. And when we reach out to another person and we look at them with rose-colored glasses, all of a sudden the Rebbe Shalom says, wow, look how you treat other people. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, kaviyachol. And our din ends up being different.
Enjoyed this story? Come again. Bring a friend. StoriesToInspire.org